Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to our research seminar series. Today we'll have a special guest, Dr. Meyers, one of his students he's been in research with, Lindsey Christiansen, right? And I'm just going to present Dr. Meyers, but before I do that, we'd just like to remind everybody that all the previous sessions that we've had have been recorded, and they will be accessible on the OUR website. They take a while to upload, but slowly but surely we will have them uploaded and accessible on the OUR website, and also on Facebook or YouTube. And so if you have any questions about those, just email the OUR, and they'll let you know more about it. And also, we might send out an email reminder saying, you guys, hey, these are all available now, so you can tell your friends and any kind of different groups that you have involved with, like for research. So, with Dr. Meyers, he has been at Weber State for 20 years, and he has a master's degree from Louisiana State, and he received his PhD from Brown University. And I did a little bit of research with him, and I'm very impressed by his work, so I'm really grateful to have him do some dissemination with us today. So I'll give him a hand, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. It's really nice to be able to come and talk to you today. Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to speak for a little while on dissemination, and then, as Jason said, I'll have my student, Lindsey Christiansen, come and speak for a little bit and give you a student's perspective on that. At this point, I would like to acknowledge my future former non-participating presenting co-presenter, Dr. Therese Grijalva. She was supposed to share this time with me, and some personal matter came up and she wasn't able to make it. And she and I did collaborate on the content of this, and so I do want to acknowledge her contribution to that. So basically, what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about dissemination. And basically, you've heard talks thus far, and if you're involved in student research, you've gotten your grant proposal funded, you've conducted your research, you've completed your research. Now what are you going to do about it? Well, now is time to disseminate the research. And obviously every component is important, but this is your opportunity to get that information that you've discovered or collected out to the scientific community. And for scientists, this is kind of the key part of research. If you conduct research and you make some great discoveries, but you never tell anybody, then it's like you didn't do anything, right? If Columbus had come to the New World and then never made it back, then it's like he never made it at all, okay? So I'm going to go through some things about why and how and where to do this. So first, a couple of things about why you might want to disseminate. Experience. Most of these things, most of these why questions are answered with gaining experience, gaining knowledge. And here the experience is in creating or designing a presentation. And we know those presentations come in the form of a poster presentation or a platform presentation, what we would consider a talk. These are similar but different, and they both require very different approaches to the creation of, the design of that presentation. So I've included Lindsey here in a couple of pictures. Here she is working on her poster that she presented for the SIGBI meeting in 2011. That's the Society for Integrative and Comparative Biology. And I'll be talking a little bit more about her, and she'll be talking a little bit more about herself. So I won't say any more, but there she's on the computer working on the poster. Here is, I already had that. Why is it not going? Okay. This is, what's happening? Can we stop the film?
Anchor 2012 in the bottom right.
Yes, but let me, okay, somehow, even though I'm using my own computer, my next slide is not appearing. How about that? Okay, what if I gave a presentation and didn't work right. Okay,
There it is.
so there it is. That's not the right order, but it doesn't matter. We'll just move along. Okay, so in addition to creating the presentation, then there's the experience preparing to give the presentation. And this, of course, involves how it's organized, the rehearsal of that, the familiarity with it. Obviously, I've not done that today because I'm not familiar with my own slides, and the actual experience presenting it. Further experiences, dealing with further kinds of dissemination, writing a paper, writing a manuscript, preparing that into an article to be published by a journal. All of these give us different kinds of experiences that are useful. All these are scary. These are all scary things to do for the first time or for the second time. But the more that you do that, like anything else, the more experience that you have, the easier that it gets and the less scary that it gets. So for no other reason, you want to do this for the opportunities to make it less scary. Something is scary, you're less likely to do it. When it becomes less scary, it's more encouraging and welcoming. You can also get feedback from others. Both positive feedback, hey, you did a great job, and also critical feedback. You know, this really sucked. Or here's a way that you can make this better the next time, whether it's the presentation itself, or more importantly, the content, the context of the research. And it allows you to learn how to listen to other people telling you things about it, and learn how not to be afraid of criticism. We're all afraid of criticism. Now I'm not going to want to watch that. Right? That snafu in the middle. So we want to learn how to listen and learn how to accept criticism and to hone our communication skills. And all that is, again, part of what you gain from the research experience. You can also get help. You meet with other people, other scientists, other people in that field, and if you've had problems or difficulties, you can contact them, meet them in person, discuss with them, get help from them. There's also a big part of networking in the research biz, and so you can meet people who you hope to work with in graduate school or for other future collaboration or networking. And this is all made possible by getting out there, interacting with people who are also engaged in research. A little bit of selfishness, you can get Weber State's name out there, get Weber State's name known. Okay, Weber State has an impressive opportunity for undergraduate research, and it's great that we are able to put that out and hosting NCUR and getting other ways that we can have our name recognized as one of the leaders in undergraduate research. This is a really important thing, and Lindsey will talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so that's the why of it. Let's talk a little bit about the where of it. Meetings, obviously these are the major venue for dissemination, and there are a number of different levels. There's a university type forum, like the Weber State Annual Symposium. We have in the College of Science, a Sigma Xi research competition. There are national or regional undergraduate forums, like NCUR. You can get funding through OUR to attend these. A little plug-in for that. NCUR, UCUR, Posters on the Hill, Weber State Day at the Capitol. There's something called the National Undergraduate Literature Conference. That's NULC, that's in there. That's obviously Dr. Grijalva's contribution to this slide. Another great opportunity at that level. And then there are national or regional societal meetings, professional meetings. And again, travel funding through OUR is possible. And these are discipline specific, of course. So if you are working in science, or you're working in humanities, or you're working in social science, talk to your mentors and find out what those societies are, and if those departments, those colleges have students attending and presenting at these national societal meetings. How many people in here are science-related people? Okay, so almost everybody. What about humanities-related? Humanities. Okay, something else? Something none of the above? You raise your hand for two things.
BIS.
So you'd be raising your hand for three things. Okay, great. So mostly science people, and I try to make this very general and not to focus on science, but talk to your individual mentor and see where they go and where they present, and see those kinds of opportunities. Right. So these national and regional societal meetings, the advantage of these is that they get you connected to experts in that field. So I have a couple of pictures of Lindsey here presenting, again, at SIGB. Here she is talking to somebody who is a professor at the medical school at Ohio State, talking about her research, asking questions. Hopefully these are questions that she was able to answer. Here she is talking to another anatomy professor from Cornell Vet School. And again, oftentimes I've had students that have had problems with techniques, with things not working, and it's a great opportunity to get help from other people who are doing similar kinds of things. And again, also impress them that these are undergrads who are doing this work. Okay, another approach to dissemination is publications. Okay, and oftentimes publications will follow presentations. There are a number of university undergraduate journals. Weaver State has Ergo. Who's heard of Ergo? Who knows that it exists? Okay, good job, John. There's also a Big Sky Conference undergraduate journal that I learned about from Dr. Grijalva as well. And others can be found at the cur.org website. So there are those types of publications. There are also discipline-specific journals. Again, contact your mentor, work with your mentor about the possibility that your work is publishable. Great opportunities for that. Again, learning about the publication process, writing the manuscript. It's a different kind of experience from making a poster and presenting it, but it's all valuable. Something else, the departmental thesis. In the College of Science, or at least in the zoology department, we have a thesis. And so this is a form of dissemination. The student conducts research, usually over a couple of years, and they have to present this research. And they typically present the research in the departmental seminar, where they have to sort of have a miniature defense of that thesis with their thesis committee. And some of these are very, very well attended and have been excellent. And many students have been able to transform that thesis into a publication. So I've had a couple of students do this. So here's a picture of a student's thesis page, and here it transforms into a paper that he was able to write and have published. And of course, having a publication is sort of the cream of the cream of dissemination, and being able to have that information on a resume or an application to professional school of any kind is really a great thing to have done as an undergraduate. So with that, I guess we can field some questions afterwards, but what I'll do is I'll turn a little bit of time over to Lindsey, and she'll talk to you from a student's perspective about her dissemination experiences. And what I'll do is I'll just blank that up.
I'm going to try and stay over here out of the camera.
No.
So as Dr. Meyers said, my name is Lindsey Christiansen, and I have been working in his lab for the past 3 years. And during this time working with him, I've been able to present my research at 2 different meetings. And so you saw these in here. The first one was the Society for Integrative and Comparative Biology, which I'm now going to help myself and abbreviate as SICB. And also at the National Conference on Undergraduate Research, and I'll also abbreviate this one as NCUR. I presented a poster at SICB in 2011. This is a professional society meeting, as Dr. Meyers said, and most of the people who are presenting here are graduate students who are pursuing their PhDs, or they are faculty members. And Dr. Meyers was very clever not to tell me who I was talking to in those slides until after the fact. So I think I probably would have been a little more nervous had I known who I was speaking to, but it was really awesome to be presenting at that meeting, and a lot of the people were surprised and impressed to see an undergraduate student there at that societal meeting, and so it felt good representing Weber State as well as myself among all of these other scientists. And then I presented a talk at NCUR in 2012, so that was just here at Weber State last year. This is a national meeting. I think that they had students from every state. I don't know if Dr. Cabot knows, but I think they had a representative from every state as well as some international students. So that was an awesome experience, seeing how many undergraduates are really involved with the research at this level. But I really learned so much from both of these experiences. As I mentioned at SICB, I was able to talk to other scientists, and this was really neat because there was a lot of people who knew a lot about the research that I was presenting, and they were able to ask me challenging questions and also discuss ideas about how I could take my research even further. So that was really nice talking with those kind of people. And also another kind of side note about attending that meeting, I was able to attend some of the oral presentation sessions. And I just remember sitting through those meetings and being totally amazed at some of the research that's being conducted all over the country. And it was really inspiring, and it really motivated me in my own research and just kind of reaffirmed why I'm involved with research and what a neat process that is to be a part of. And I really believe that if you can surround yourself with people who have similar aspirations as you, the better person that makes you. And disseminating your research is a great segue to get into that type of atmosphere. So that was really neat for me to be involved with that. And then preparing an oral presentation for NCUR was also a really invaluable experience for me. Like many of you, I'm not super passionate about talking in front of crowds. And so that was a really great way to tackle that fear. And Dr. Meyers mentioned that this gets easier with time, and I'm just kind of trusting that that's going to happen one of these times. So, but really it was a great experience, and it was really beneficial to get over that fear. And aside from just overcoming that challenge, it also really taught me how to pay attention to details. As you're presenting a huge slide up there, you don't really want any errors or anything like that. So it really teaches you to pay attention to detail, and also to effectively communicate my thoughts and ideas to a crowd that probably doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge on the topic, which sometimes can be very difficult to do. So really great values from both of those experiences. And you can clearly see that there are advantages at presenting at both types of meetings, societal meetings as well as the national level meetings. Society meetings, you get to do these collaborations that Dr. Meyers mentioned, networking, and hopefully making contacts with people who you wish to work with in the future. And then at national meetings, being able to do an oral presentation. I never would have had the courage to do that at the SICB meeting, and so being able to do that at NCUR was just such an awesome experience for me. But overall, I really can't say enough about the whole undergraduate research program. Here at Weber State, we're really lucky to have as many professors and mentors willing to take undergraduate students into their lab and impart, at least some of their knowledge onto us. And this covers a broad range of life skills, from taking theory that you learn in the classroom and applying it to real life experiences, to learning how to do technical writing in grant proposals, or hopefully a thesis or a publication. And really there's just so many lessons to be learned from undergraduate research, and I'm thankful for the experience that I've had working with Dr. Meyers. and I'm sure we'd both be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Jason.
Yeah, so I just have a question. What's the best approach do you think a student can approach when he begins research, or she begins research, to make sure that that research is actually going to be able to be good enough to disseminate, good enough to get published, good enough to present at NCUR and these other meetings? What would be your advice to the student that wants to make sure they do research that is capable of that dissemination?
Pick the right mentor. Is that still on?
It is.
Oh, great. I said that kind of jokingly, but the reality is that you want to work with somebody who's doing research that is publishable, that is presentable, in the sense that it represents new findings, and not just sort of busy work that you're learning something that's already been figured out and already done. And that's the point of laboratory classes. But you're learning how to collect data of information that's never been discovered. And it's hard to do this as an undergrad, because a lot of times, if you're talking things like field seasons, there isn't enough time to collect the data that you need to provide large sample size or other statistical power to make it a publication. And sometimes it requires a number of students over numbers of years, and then all that data is compiled and all the students participate. And so you may be at the beginning of it and not get to be at the end of it where it all gets assembled, or you're at the end of it and you get to put that paper together. But it really, I think, depends on the kind of work that's being done. And I think it's reasonable to ask, is this something that I can present at a meeting, or could this lead to a publication? When you're getting involved with a mentor, when you're writing a research proposal, or just getting involved. You want to add anything to that?
No, that's right.
What's the best way, because obviously in certain circumstances you might get rejected, whether you're submitting to a journal or to present at a conference. What's the best way to deal with that and to kind of...
To deal with rejection?
I can try and find another way to present it. Like, what would you recommend to someone who's been rejected?
Find out why you're rejected, I guess, is the thing that you need to know first. Lots of journals, particularly very elite journals, have very, very small acceptance rates. So it may just be that they're not interested in what you're doing, and it doesn't reflect the quality. And that's a separate issue, is how to target the right journal with your research. What's the best venue to disseminate? And that, again, is something that you're going to discuss with your mentor and find out. Not everybody can publish stuff in Science or Nature, and most papers sent to those journals are rejected. Something like, it's like 95%, and a large percentage aren't even reviewed. They get them and say, we don't want this. And so you just have to develop a thick skin and not be put off doing it, because there will be a proper venue for that. Now, if the quality is a problem, that's a separate issue. But again, you have to discuss with your mentor and find out where you are and what you're doing. And just like developing a research project or doing all this, you're not doing this by yourself. You're doing this with your mentor. Your mentor's giving you advice. I don't know any undergraduate mentor who's going to say, you want this published, go write it up and do it yourself. So it's all a mentoring issue. Yeah.
So before talking to your mentor, would you, how would I say this? Should you go to your mentor and just tell about your idea, or have research that you've already done on your own and then ask your mentor, can this go on? Like, how do you go about that?
So are you talking about getting involved in research in the first place?
Yeah, like if you already have an idea and you're doing like your own thing, but you want like more help and stuff.
I think the reality is that, and I think this is a general perception problem for undergrads, which is that somehow we expect you to have a project, and of course that is really I think it's uncommon. I mean, most at least in science, most of the students are working with mentors that have a project, or getting the students involved in a project that's ongoing, or the mentor is setting up a project and has the opportunities for a student to work with that project. Because we don't expect undergrads to come up with a project that's going to be, in the end, publishable. I mean, it's possible, but we don't have that expectation. And most students are reluctant to get involved in research because they think that they have to come up with this totally new thing on their own. And of course, that's what a PhD is. And we don't expect that from undergraduates. Now, if you have some idea for a project, it's certainly great, and it's certainly something to talk to the right mentor about and find out whether that's something that they can mentor you on, and whether whether it represents something that can be completed to the point where it's publishable or presentable. Again, the whole idea, at least in science, is that you're discovering new things, you're collecting data that hasn't ever been discovered before. And you're not going, if you redo somebody else's research and you get the same results, you can't publish that. That's already been done. So there has to be something new about it to make it publish worthy. And it's the mentor that's going to have the sense of that discipline and know that literature to know whether something that you're proposing is original and new enough to kind of go the whole road. And so there may be some mentors that will take on students to do things that have already been done just as a way of giving them research experience. And that's valuable as a research experience. But if it's already been done and published, then it's not going to lead to this kind of culmination, which is the dissemination portion of the research experience. Did that kind of clarify that? Okay. Yeah.
So how does getting like into like the NCUR or other like conferences, how does that kind of thing go?
How does it go?
Yeah, well, like how would you get into that?
Do you mean how do you apply?
Yeah, like just.
Well, you have to have a project, first of all, that you're ready to disseminate. And then the Office of Undergraduate Research provides funding for students to attend NCUR. So beginning in November, is it, Erin?
Yeah.
In November, we require students to apply to our office for a grant. And once you receive that, then you can apply to NCUR to present. And then our office will fund the travel. So there's an application process with them.
And you submit an abstract of your research, and that abstract, and that's for any society that you are going to try to present to. You submit an abstract, and then the abstract is typically evaluated, and it's accepted or not accepted for presentation, and then you usually indicate whether you want to give a poster or what they call a platform talk. And all this happens typically months ahead of time. So you have to have enough data to write an abstract that's legitimate enough to say that you really have done something, and then you end up, after that's accepted, with 2 or 3 or 4 months to prepare your presentation. And of course, we're often collecting more data during that time as well. But you can't say, I will talk about the data that I collect. I mean, your abstract can't say that. You actually have to have something in there that shows that you've really done something that you're going to be talking about. So it is over a time frame. Yeah.
Could you elaborate on the importance of starting research early in your undergraduate career because of how long it takes to disseminate, and you don't necessarily want your publications to be published after you're already have applied to professional schools?
That's a great point. And like he said, and this is something that I think students will often wait too long. But if the more time that you can spend working on a project, working with a mentor, the more you can learn and the more experiences you can have. And that's the whole idea of this getting easier. So one of my students before Lindsey, I think worked with me for three or 3.5 years. And she ended up, I think, giving 4 or 5 presentations over the course of her time. And she went to 2 national professional meetings, and she spoke at one regional meeting, and she spoke at one meeting here at Weber State, and she spoke at a couple of other venues, and she was really into talking. And any opportunity that came up to give a presentation, she was all over that. And it got to the point where she was pretty independent, even of just setting these up and putting them together and rehearsing them. She had gotten so experienced at it. You know, if you're in an opportunity or an experience where you have only a year, there's going to be less of that. So like anything else, the earlier you can start, the more experience that you can get, the more you can learn, the more opportunities you might have. Because I mean, Lindsey's worked on a couple of different projects, so she's been able to present different aspects, not totally different, but different aspects, so she's been able to give different presentations. We try not to give the same presentation multiple times, but different aspects of these different projects. And so different venues means different length of time means different aspects, or preliminary data and then final comprehensive data, particularly if the data is a little bit different in the end than what you thought it meant in the beginning. So all of those are opportunities. Manuscripts are really, really special, and it's very unusual. I don't know that any of my students have had papers published while they were still here. So the reality is that it's really hard to do all of that, to do the research and write that up and submit that and have it accepted and printed all in the length of time that you're here. But it comes out, you know, after a year or so after they leave, and it's still helpful. It can be done, but as you said, early, getting involved early, you know, is the best way to do it. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just having spent 3 years with Dr. Meyers and how much I've learned already, I can't imagine taking in as much as I have in 1 year. So,
yeah.
As you've listened to students defend theses or present their research, are there common mistakes that they make, or things that you're frustrated with or wish they could do better?
Not from my students. No, I think I've seen things in other students that weren't working with me, but yeah, I don't know how else to answer that. I mean, it comes down to preparation, and it comes down to how hard they work and how well they prepare. I take that back because I did have an experience with a student that did a presentation that wasn't what I wanted it to be as a mentor. And again, mentors are different. Different mentors, whether it's an undergraduate mentor or a graduate school mentor, everybody's different. Everybody has different approaches to mentoring. Everybody has a different, again, I'm talking about in science, where we tend to be more hands-on with students, I think, than in other disciplines. Some mentors are really hands-on. They micromanage, or they hold the student's hand. That's an expression that we use. And other mentors are very much hands-off. So this is your project, you've written a proposal for it, you have to do it. You want to do it, you want to present it, do it. And they're very much, you have to do that. And other mentors, Lindsey can tell you, I'm very much the opposite of that. And I'm involved, and I want to, make sure that everything is done as the best that it can be done. And lots of mentors are like that. And so when you have more control, then you have more control, and you have more control in the final product. And when you have less control, then the student is more independent, but maybe they're not ready to be independent. And so then things kind of go not the way you might want, but maybe you're content with that. So it's just a very you want to add anything?
No, I think there's a whole range, and I think people feel all those ranges that we have here on campus. I think, one of the things is preparation, as Dr. Meyers mentioned, and practicing, and sometimes students don't realize that a poster session requires practice as well. It's not just put the poster together and stand there. You need to be able to have your little stump speech prepared that will allow you to effectively communicate your research to someone who's not familiar with it at all. And you see that at these conferences where the students, it's obvious they haven't thought about how to communicate their research in a very short amount of time, but a very clear fashion. So that's one of the things that I pick up on, is that poster sessions often tend to be left on the side in terms of whether or not they've prepared for their oral part of the poster session. Lindsey, could you talk a little bit about how you got involved, what the process you used to get involved with research?
Yeah, so I actually got involved.
Yeah, you need to go in front of the camera.
I'll take place. Just stand there.
I got involved with Dr. Meyers my second semester at Weber State. I had taken anatomy from Dr. Chung and then got involved with the advanced anatomy group and then met Dr. Meyers there. One of his students who was kind of working in his lab at that time had told me that she was doing some research with him, and I just was very interested in what he was doing. It was kind of anatomy based, and I was finding my love of anatomy, and so I just was very forward about it, and I walked up to him and I said, Dr. Meyers, I hear you're doing research. How do I get in? And so he was very kind enough to bring me by the lab and show me a little bit more about what he was doing, and start me out with some kind of smaller things at first and slowly bring me into the whole aspect of their research. And somehow I've convinced him to let me stay for 3 years. So, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of students don't know that professors are looking for students and that there are a lot of opportunities for different research projects that are out there. So I would just recommend the best thing is to start talking to people and not be afraid to talk to professors. We have amazing professors here at Weber State that are super willing to talk to you and answer questions, and even if a professor maybe doesn't have an opening in their lab, chances are they know somebody that does, so you can get involved with that pretty early on.
What was your project that you did, that you presented at SICB?
We've been studying the syringeal muscles of birds. Syringeal muscles are like equivalent to the voice box of humans. So we've been studying the fiber types of that. I don't know if all of this makes sense to anybody, but the different fiber types in the muscles of the syrinx. So my project was a denervation study. Basically, there are two nerves that innervate the syrinx. We collaborate with Dr. Franz Guller of the University of Utah, and he performs these procedures called denervations, which basically just means he goes in and snips the nerve to one half of the syrinx. And my project specifically was looking at re-innervation times and if that muscle is able to ever come back to its original fiber type and cross-sectional area composition. So, and right now I'm kind of doing a different part of this, and we're looking at a broad range of different species of songbirds and looking at how their syringeal muscles are the same or different across different species. So.
And you're also training other students in the lab, so that's the responsibility of the senior student is to bring aboard new students or to mentor in some way new students and get them involved and to get them up to speed and things.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this before, but I do want to mention that I have received three Office of Undergraduate Research grants. So 2 summer stipends and then also a travel grant to prevent at the SICB meeting. So there's a lot of opportunities to receive funding, and which makes you more able to dedicate more time to the lab and into your project. So, and then I'm just getting started on working on the senior thesis, hopefully, and then we're hopeful that maybe a manuscript will come out of that. So.
Great. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much.